Howdy, 2012 Explorer rack and pinion bushings. So this is the bushing itself here, and that's the nut at the end of the bolt. Here's your big old bolt, goes up in there, comes from here and goes up to that bushing. Okay, be careful with this nut because they have Loctite on them, and as you see that wire that's behind it, if you can see it there, this wire back here, be careful with your torches or else you'll melt that wire. So what I did is I brought the flame back towards the back of the car so I wouldn't melt that wire. But you got to heat this up because it has Loctite on it. You'll never get it off without heat. I use acetylene torches. You can also use, it's not called infrared, but where it only heats up the bolt because it makes contact with it. I meant to get that information before this video, but that's one. The other one is over here. I've already taken it out. Again, it's the bolt that holds the rack in. It's in this area. Again, the same thing. You want to be careful with the torches if you're going to use them. Just put a low flame on it. But you will have to get that Loctite out. The nut size is 1.25 inches. And for the passenger side, you will need a wrench. Preferably snap-on because they're a little bit smaller in diameter. They're not as thick. And it'll fit in this little gap here to hold that nut. So you got to heat them up. Get the Loctite off of them. So these are the old bushings. This one here is the upper one, both sides. This is the lower one. As you can see, this is flat. That sits on the surface of the engine cradle. This one here, of course, is a nut, as I showed you. 1.25 wrench holds that. Now, I'm back to the front of the vehicle, and I've put a small or a large screwdriver here to move the rack up so that I can get underneath of it to get that flat bushing out of there. As you can see, just lift it up. That, depending on how bad that bushing is, sometimes it just drops right out of there. So if there's too much material in there from the old bushing, you would need to scrape all that out. And that's what I've done. Got the hole nice and clean. Do the same thing on the other side over there. As you can see, it's just hanging there. But when you pry it up, that driver's side was so bad that there was no bushing material left, so it just fell out by itself. This one here has a little bit of the bushing material on it. Yours might be a little different, but usually not. Sorry about the camera work. See, a little bit of green is the bushing material. When you heat that up, be sure and clean it out right away, or else it'll get hard in there. It'll be very difficult to get it out of that hole so you can fit your new bushing in. So these are the new bushings. They've made these out of rubber instead of plastic now. It's the upper and the lower. I also am going to lubricate this area with some dielectric grease because it's basically just silicone. Helps it go in easier. Helps preserve the rubber as well, protect it from weather and water and dirt and stuff. Dielectric grease or some sort of grease or silicone that'll help it go in easier. So to get the new bushing in, you can see all that old bushing material. To get the new bushing in, I pried it up there with a large screw right here at the muffler. Just pry that up right there. Get your bushing in there, and then to line the bushing and keep it straight, put your Loctite on your bolt. Be sure to use the Loctite. Put the Loctite on your bolt, put it in the hole, and that'll line the bushing up with the rack and pinion. And then put your nut on the top and slowly bring the pressure down, watching the bushings to make sure they go in there straight. So this putting your bolt in keeps the bushing straight, keeps it flat and straight. Set your rack back onto the bushing, holding it with that bolt. Put the bolt all the way through, put your nut on the top, and draw them together very slowly. This is the passenger side. Bolt is in, bushing is on the bottom. Can't see it from this angle, but it's in there straight. The top one is in there straight. So now you want to hold the nut there at the top, turn the bolt at the bottom, and slowly press the bushings into the bottom and the top of the rack. And of course, this is passenger side. Do the same on the drivers. Drivers is way easier. I always start with the hard part. Then the easy part's that much easier. So there it is. Now another tidbit on this passenger side. That's the side I started with. Doesn't matter what side you start with. But when you get that bolt up in there and get the nut on the top, just snug it down enough to not lose the bolt. Don't tighten it up too much, because you have to bring up the other side to get the bushing in on the other side. Be sure and use your Loctite, like I mentioned. And as you tighten, make sure that the bottom bushing on both sides is lined up square with the rack and pinion before you start tightening. That way it'll go in there nice and smooth. It won't get cockeyed and it won't destroy the bushing. So as you tighten, make sure the lower bushing is straight according to the rack, and tighten her up. I can't emphasize the Loctite more, because that's the only thing that basically keeps that nut tight. And the new ones don't come with Loctite on them, so be sure and use a good quality Loctite. Happy trails.